In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a really awesome and really stunning lyric video. So let's get into it. Hey, what's up? It's Chris from Brooker Films, and yes, in today's video, we're talking all about lyric videos. And although I made one of these videos for you last year, I'm going to do an updated 2019 lyric video and show you how to make a really awesome typography lyric video. So, once we're inside of Adobe After Effects, we want to begin by creating a brand new composition. So we'll go New Composition, we'll rename this to Lyric Video. Make sure the width is 1920, the height is 1080. You can select this box to lock the aspect ratio to 16:9 if you fancy. Select the frame rate of your choice. I'm going to select 23.976 frames per second. And then the duration can be, let's say 20 seconds. And then we'll press OK. Now you first want to begin by dragging some music into After Effects. So you want to find a track that you really love, drag that into the timeline. Then you want to select this drop down arrow, select audio, waveform, and you should see your audio waveform appear on the timeline. Now, if you're doing the lyric video for the whole track, then you want to make the composition the same length of the track. So if you have a 3-minute track, then you want to make sure that your composition is 3 minutes long. And if you want to change this, all you have to do is go Composition, Composition Settings, and change the duration just here. But I'm going to keep it on 20 seconds for now because I'm only showing you a short sequence of this track. So I'm going to cancel that, and I'm just going to drag the audio across to find the beginning of the lyrics. Okay, so the lyrics are around there. So the way that I approach lyric videos is I separate each individual line into its own little section. So I want to figure out what the words are for each individual line. So this first line we have, I may be falling, but I am alive. So we need to create a brand new text layer for all of these different words. So I may be falling, but I'm still alive. We have 8 words there, and that means we need to create 8 brand new titles. So we'll press the T icon up here, we'll select the monitor, and then you'll just create one word. So that'll be the first word. I'm going to change the color of this to white, and there we go. So we've got I may be falling. So we've got I. We can copy this if we want. I may be falling. I may be falling, but I am alive. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. I may be falling, but I am alive. So we've got I may be falling, but I am alive. So we're just going to move all of these into the composition and get them into their rough positions. Okay, so we've got I may be falling, but I am alive. Now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to find the very beginning of the first word, just there. And we're just going to trim the very beginning of I. So in order to do this, you want to hover the cursor over that area, hold Command, Shift, and D, and then just delete the first part. And then we're going to do that for each and every word going forward. So next we'll be moving on to may. I may. I may be falling, but I am alive. Right, let's just play that back from the very beginning. I feel like we just need to slightly move the timing of some of those clips over a touch. B is a bit late, so we'll pull this to the left. Cool, that looks really good. Now we can work on animating that section. So I'm just going to delete the end of all of that. So I'm going to select all of those by holding Shift and selecting all of them. Again, we'll hold Command, Shift, and D, and then we'll delete the second half of that text. Right, and now this is where you want to go ahead and figure out what animation you want to do to animate all of these words in. You don't just want them to cut hard in like they are now. You want to add some sort of animation to them to add a little bit of character. So I'm going to first start off by lining up the first line. So I'm just going to move the second line down to the bottom of the video because we don't need that for now. And I'm just going to focus on I may be falling. So I'm going to line this all up with the proportional grid, sit everything on this one line. I may be falling. I'm going to select all of those words and I'm just going to shift those over to the middle. And there we go. That looks really nice. Right, so I, may, and B, I'm going to pop them in, and then falling, I'm going to have that pop in and sync to go with the word. So because the word is saying falling, I want the animation to represent the word, and I want the word to start to fall. It's very important if you want your lyric video and your song to be connected to pay close attention to what the lyrics are saying and try to animate the lyrics to match the music. I'm going to go to the very beginning of I, press S on the keyboard, create a brand new keyframe on scale, move over 3 keyframes, create a brand new keyframe, move over another 3 frames and create a brand new keyframe. Now we'll go to that second keyframe, we'll increase the scale to 1, 2, 6. We'll go to the first and pull this down to 0. And as you can see, if we play this back, we've got that really cool pop in. So I'm going to copy the scale. So select scale, hold Command C to copy that, go to the start of the second word and hold Command V to paste that in. Go to the third word, very beginning, Command V. Right, B is a little bit late, so we're going to shift this over. So is may, we'll move that over. Right, we're going to add the pop into falling. Right, as falling comes in, we're going to go to the very beginning, press P on the keyboard, create a brand new keyframe on position by pressing the stopwatch, and then we'll move to the end of that animation, and we'll just pull the position of this down. Right, now when we play this back, cool, that looks really good. But I am alive. So I'm going to animate but I am alive just over here on the left. But I am alive. But rather than just having this directly under here in the same orientation, I'm going to rotate but I am alive 180 degrees to the left. So I'm going to select but I am and alive, hit R on the keyboard, and we're going to make this negative 90 degrees. All right, we'll roughly position these where we want them to roughly sit. And then we'll go up to Layer, New, Null Object. We'll select all of the text layers that we have so far. And we'll use this Pick Whip tool to connect everything to the null object. This basically means that whenever I adjust anything on the null object, whether it be position, scale, or rotation, all of the text layers will be affected at the exact same time. So at the end of falling, we're going to press R on the keyboard to load up a rotation on the null, create a brand new keyframe, scroll to the right, and we're just going to rotate this at 90 degrees. Of course, we might have to update the position as well, so go back to that first keyframe, press P on the keyboard to load up position, press R to find out where the keyframes were on the rotation, press P again, and we're just going to update that position. So if we watch this back, nice. But I do want to line up "but I am alive" with this line here on "I may be falling." So just going to zoom in. We'll line up all of these words here. So I'm going to put "I" and "but" on this line here. And then we'll just move these, we'll just move these over here. I'm going to pull up one more time. And then "alive," I'm going to pull up and making sure that it matches up with the edge of these other words. So if we zoom back out, turn the proportional grid back off, we can see the gap between "am" and "alive" is bigger than the gap between "but" and "am." So I'm just going to pull this down a touch. And that looks a lot nicer. But I would like it to all match up with the very top of this. So I'm going to select all of those words, and we're just going to zoom in and drag those up to the very top, making sure they follow this line here. And when you're happy with that, we're just going to zoom back out. We'll play from the beginning. Nice. There we go. Right, now we need to find a way to transition out of this one line so we can go into the new line. So we can either carry on the animation style within this text so we can keep this text on screen, or we can use a transition to start a brand new, fresh page. And that is what we're going to do for this example. So after the first word has been sung, we're going to create a brand new keyframe on the null object, but we're going to press the drop down arrow first, create a brand new keyframe on scale, position, and rotation. We're going to go forward a few keyframes, and we're just going to increase the scale, and we want to zoom through the A on "am." So as you can see, we've got "I am alive," and we want to zoom through this triangle just here. Perfect, so we'll get that to about there. We'll select all of those keyframes, right click, and select Keyframe Assistant and Easy Ease. Now, as you can see, we haven't gone all the way through the A because we want to finish this off by animating the "am" on its own rather than the null object. So as we get to around here, you want to go to "am," use the drop-down arrow to load up transform, create a brand new keyframe on scale and position. Then we're just going to move over to the right a few keyframes, increase the scale, and we're just going to zoom in. Whoa. And we're just going to zoom in to go through this gap just here. And there we go. Now, once you've zoomed through, you can just basically delete the tail end of all of those clips. So select all of those words, hold Command Shift D, and we'll delete everything to the right of that cut. Now, let's watch this back. Looks really nice. So we're finished with the first line here, but I'm just going to add a background to the text because at the moment it's just white text on a black background. It looks a little bit boring. So we'll go Layer, New, Solid, and we'll select a color. So let's select a dark blue. We'll press OK and drag this to the very bottom. Cool, that looks really good. Now, I'm just going to make sure all of those words, that one line, are all pre-comped into their own pre-composition. So go to the very end of all of those words, select all of those words, include the null object, add all of those words in. We're going to pre-comp this, rename that to line 1, and when we watch this back, cool. And if you wanted, because we've got this in its own pre-composition, we can add some effects to this line here. So let's do some chromatic aberration. So you just want to make 2 copies of the line. So select line 1 and hold Command C and then press Command V 2 times. Now we'll go up into Effects and Presets, search for Tint, drop Tint onto the first line, and then map white to red. Turn that off, go down to line 2, and we're going to map white to green. Now we'll turn that one off, go down to line 1 on the bottom, drop Tint on, and we'll map the white to blue. So we should have RGB, that's red, green, and blue. Turn these back on, and we're going to change the toggle switches / modes. We're going to press that, and we're going to change the blending mode of the top 2 lines to screen. So the top line is screen, the second line is screen, and now we have white text again. So if we move line 1 over to the left a bit, you can see we've got this really cool chromatic aberration effect happening. And the same thing applies to the second line. We get a slightly different color. So feel free to move this around, add some really cool chromatic aberration to your lyrics. I'm just going to move the top line over to the right just a little bit. And we'll move the second line just over a touch as well. And when we play this back, we have this really cool effect. That looks really cool. So we're just going to select all of those 3 line 1s. We're going to right click, pre-compose, line 1, chromatic aberration, so CA. And then we're just going to cut the tail end of that by holding Command Shift D and deleting that. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the blue background now, to be honest. I want to change the color of this. So select that layer, go into Effects and Presets, into Tint, drag Tint onto the solid. And that grade does actually look really nice, but I'm going to slightly change this by mapping the black to a slightly lighter black, so more of a dark gray. And then we'll map the white closer to black. And there we go. That looks really cool. Right, so we can now move on to the next line, but before we do that, we're just going to padlock the background to make sure the background doesn't go anywhere. So we need to do the same process for the next line. It might be over. It may be over. So we're just going to do that in its own line. So go up to the title, it. We're going to make a few copies of that. It may be over. I'm going to load up the proportional grid, so select the proportional grid, and then we're going to position everything over, perfectly sitting on that middle line. It may be over. We're going to change the size of all of these, so select everything, go into the character, pull this all down to 100. It may be over. Now we're just going to make sure all of these are sitting right next to each other, make sure they all sit on that bottom line. It may be over. We'll zoom back out, select all of those layers. Make sure they are centered into the center of the comp. And now we can go ahead and animate these on at the right time. It may be over. 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 That looks really cool. Now we want to add a really cool animation transition on here. So we're going to go into Effects and Presets. We'll go into Animation Presets, Transitions, and we'll do some Dissolve Transitions. And then you want to go ahead and select one of these. It's completely up to you, but I'm going to do Block Dissolve Digital. We'll drop that onto it. And as you can see, if we go into Effects, so we'll press E on the keyboard, go into Dissolve, Master Control, drag the keyframes over to the left, and we'll shorten the gap between the keyframes. We've got this really cool flicker on. So now we've got that really cool transition on. We want to copy and paste that onto all of the other lines. So we're going to copy the Effects tab, so select Effects, hold Command C, go to the start of line 2, hold Command V, go to the start of line 3, Command V, go to the start of line 4 and select Command V.
It may be over. It may be over.
That looks really cool. I also want to add some line animation into the background just to make this a little bit more interesting. So in order to do that, we want to go ahead and create a brand new rectangle. So select the rectangle tool, select no fill. So you do this by selecting the word fill and selecting this button here that says none. Go into stroke, change this to white, and then you can increase or decrease the stroke size. Now I'm just going to draw a rectangle roughly in the center of the video. We'll zoom back in, go into rectangle 1, and we're going to select the add button. We're going to press this triangle here, go to trim paths, select trim paths, and we're going to pull the start all the way up to 100%. Scroll back to the very beginning of the line, create a brand new keyframe on start, scroll towards the end of the line, and we'll pull this down to 0. Now selecting shape layer 1, you want to press S on your keyboard to load up scale, increase the scale, select R on the keyboard to load rotation. You want to add some rotation to this.
It may be over.
In fact, I want that to animate on a little bit sooner, so I'm going to pull this over to the left. I'm just going to cut the start of that. And I'm going to make a few copies of this rectangle, but I'm going to make each one a little bit smaller than the other. So I'm going to copy that first one, hold Command C, Command V. I'm going to go over to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keyframes, position that over, press S on the keyboard, pull this down to around 120. And if we play this back,
It may be over.
we've got this really cool effect happening. But I'm going to add a little bit of rotation to this, so I'm going to turn this to, let's say, -10. Now we're going to make another copy of that. Hold Command C, Command V. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keyframes. Go to scale, press S. Pull this to around 100. Rotation can be negative, let's say -5.
It may be over.
And we're just going to keep repeating this process over and over again until we've got loads and loads of these really small boxes. So copy that third one, Command C, Command V, move over 5 keyframes. Decrease the scale to around 80%. Press R to load up the rotation. We'll make this 0. We'll copy that one, hold Command C, Command V, move over 5 keyframes. Press S to load up scale, make this 60. Press R and we'll turn this to +6. And we'll do this one last time. We'll hold Command C, Command V, move this over 5 keyframes. Press S, make this around 30 pixels. Press R on the keyboard and we'll make this +17. Now we're just going to let this render out and we're just going to watch this effect back.
It may be over.
Now that looks really cool, but to go with the rotating boxes, I also want to add a little bit of digital rotation. So like we did with the first one, we want to parent everything to a null object. So I'm just going to pull this up. I'm going to go Layer, New, Null Object. I'm going to grab all of the text and all of those rectangles, use this pit whip tool and drag this on to null 2. Now at the very beginning of the movement, you want to go into null 2, press the drop down arrow, transform, and create a brand new keyframe on position, scale, and rotation. Now we'll move forward towards the end of the motion. We'll increase the scale to around 120. We'll increase the rotation. And then we don't need to update the position, so we'll keep that as it is. And if we watch that back,
It may be over. It may be over, but I may be falling, but I am alive. It may be over, but
cool, that looks really good. So now we can move on to line 3, and to get rid of all of this, I want to do a transition. So we'll close everything down that we've got so far. Now you just want to select everything that we just created for line 2. You want to right click and turn this into a pre-composition. So select pre-compose, rename this to line 2, and then we want to use Command Shift D to get rid of the first start of that. Delete that, and then you want to scroll through to the end of the line. And we're going to do the same thing one more time. So Command Shift D and delete the second half of that. Now, this is where we're going to move on to line 3, and this is where we're going to do that transition. So we'll go Layer, New, Solid. We can change the color of this to something a little bit different. So we'll go for a dark brown on this. Select OK. And at the end of that line, we're going to press P on the keyboard, create a brand new keyframe on position, move to the right a few keyframes, create a brand new keyframe, move to the first keyframe, and we're going to pull the position up to the very top of the video. So this should be completely off screen. Now that was a little bit too slow, so I'm just going to pull these to the left and shorten the gap between those two keyframes. Again, a little bit too slow. I'm going to shorten that gap. It's going to select both keyframes, right click, go keyframe assistant, easy ease, and we've got this really cool transition into the next section. Now I'm just going to trim the first part of that off. So just before that appears, I'm just going to hold Command Shift D, delete the first part, and we've got this really cool line 1, line 2, and the transition into what will become line 3. But I touch the sky. So here I'm going to actually make this blue, and we're going to recreate the sky. I mentioned earlier about trying to link the animation to the lyrics, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So in Effects and Presets, we're going to search for Tint, drop Tint onto that dark orange solid, and we're going to map the black to a blue. Copy this number here, hold Command C, we'll go map white to, and we'll paste that in. Cool, so that's going to come in. But I touch the sky. How many words are there? But I touch the sky. We've got 5 words there, so we need to create 5 new text layers. But I touch the sky. Right, I'm going to load up the proportional grid to line these all back up again. Instead of working our way down or left to right, I'm going to go with the movement as if we're going up to the sky and say, but I touch the sky. So it's going to start at the bottom, and each word is going to be on top of each other. So we'll pull these all away from each other. I touch the sky. Turn off the proportional grid, and then we just need to cut these at the very beginning to make sure they come on at the right moment. Right, so once again, we're going to go ahead and create a brand new null object. So we'll go layer, new, null object. And then we'll parent all of those text layers to the null object, use the pick whip tool to drag that to null 3. We're going to increase the scale all the way up to around, let's go 200%. We're going to effects and presets, search for basic 3D. We're going to drop basic 3D onto the first text layer. And as you can see, we can adjust the swivel and we can adjust the tilt. But we want to adjust the tilt. So we'll adjust the tilt to around -50. We'll copy basic 3D and paste that onto all of the other text layers there. And with the null object, we're basically going to move from the bottom all the way up to the top. So we're going to adjust the position of the null object. So go position, press P. We'll pull this down to here. We're going to increase the scale. There we go. And we're going to create a brand new keyframe on scale and position. And then we can move towards the end of the animation. Decrease the scale. Move the position down. Increase the scale one more time, just a little bit. And then if we look at that movement, that looks really nice. I'm just going to extend those keyframes over to the right a little. Right, so if we play this back from the very beginning, we've got this really awesome 3 lines of text animating on. Right, and of course, if we get everything, so we're just going to select everything that we just created on the 3rd line. We're going to pre-compose that, so right-click, pre-compose line 3. We'll cut the very beginning of that off, so when this transitions in, we'll hold Command-Shift-D, get rid of the first bit, line 3 transitions in. Because all of these different lines are separated into their own pre-composition, we can move these around for timing if we needed to, but we can also add effects and animations onto each individual line, and it won't affect any other line, it would just affect the one line. So if we go into effects and presets, and we search for noise, we can drop noise onto line 1. We can increase the noise all the way up to something stupid like 40. And we've got this really cool noise effect happening on the footage. If we delete noise and we search for a preset, so we go old TV, or if we just search for TV, we can throw bad TV onto that first one. And we've got this really cool warping effect on our first line of text. And of course, if we go into animation presets, we go into image special effects, there's all of these other really cool special effects that we can throw onto one of our lines. So if we throw light leaks random onto line 3, we've got this really cool strobing light effect happening, which looks really awesome. Of course though, there's just one more thing that we need to do to finish this off, and that is to add some motion blur. Motion blur really ties everything together when it comes to lyric videos. It really is that extra cherry on the top. And all that we need to do to add motion blur is select toggle switches / modes, select everything that we have, select the motion blur box over here, and make sure the motion blur is blue over here. Now you might not have seen any motion blur there, and that is because the motion blur is not activated in each individual pre-composition. So if we go into line 3, select everything, turn motion blur on, go back to the main composition, select line 2, select everything, turn the motion blur on, back to the main composition, line 1, select everything, motion blur, go into line 1 again, select everything, motion blur, If we go back to the main composition and we let this render out, then the motion blur will be present and it's really going to iron everything out and really finish the effects off.
I may be falling, but I am alive. It may be over, but I touch the sky. There ain't no.
And there you go, that looks really awesome. Now, I know those were only the 3 lines out of the whole video. As you can see, lyric videos do take a long time to create and animate, but they are extremely worth it. So if you enjoyed watching this video, or if you feel like you learned something, then please do let me know in that comment section below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, check out the previous video, and I will see you tomorrow for another brand new video. Thank you for watching.